Hello, here we are with another case involving a court report that I prepared back in the 1990s. I'm going to call the lady Mrs. Smith, and she was 36 years old and had no previous convictions. The issues surrounding the offence were quite extreme actually and quite serious, but the offence itself, what happened was she was driving along, had a minor accident. The police were called, and they, as routine back in the 1990s, they asked her to produce her driving licence and her insurance at the police station within a week or whatever the time was back then. And it turned out that she didn't have any insurance. And she went home, and her husband encouraged her to fake up a document on their computer at home, and she produced a document that very, very, very closely resembled the actual real insurance document. She said she committed this offence because they didn't have enough money to renew her insurance, and she needed a car to get to and from work because they had huge debts. Quite a sophisticated offence in a way to create this realistic looking document, but very foolish because I think she would have been found out anyway, particularly when you've got an accident with another car and you're not insured. It's going to come out in the wash that you're not insured. So, bit silly really. And driving with no insurance is, I think, normally people just get a fine for that kind of offence. But to try and hoodwink the police and to create a fake document is regarded very, very seriously in the eyes of the law. And quite often such cases are sent up to the Crown Court. I recall a case where a young woman gave a false statement to the police. She lied, and because she'd given a false statement, it was banged up to Crown Court. So quite a serious offence in the eyes of the law. Around the background of this offence was that there was an awful lot of stress going on in the Smith household. And very recently, stress building up to appear in court, because quite recently, Mr. Smith had been remanded in custody and charged with arson and murder. My God. And it kind of makes you think, you kind of think, God, is this true? Is this some sort of TV drama? You know, would you believe this happening if you were watching a TV drama on the telly? Well, occasionally these extreme things can happen, and you kind of feel for Mrs. Smith having to cope with such a situation. So she, talking of her background, quite normal background, went to school. She did really well at typing at college and achieved distinction, very good typing skills. She did touch typing and can do shorthand. She got, after leaving college, she worked for 3 different firms and was made redundant due to financial problems at 3 different firms consecutively. And then she joined the social services, county council, and worked for social services as an admin stroke secretary stroke typist. And because of her current offence, it's very likely that she's going to have to lose her job because of what she's committed this offence. She's been married for 18 years to Mr. Smith, and they have 3 children, one aged 9, one 6 and 3. Things have been, they've had financial problems at home, and I think Mrs. Smith brought in their income and outgoings, and I was a little bit critical of their money management. For example, she was buying things on a catalogue, and there's quite high interest charges on catalogues, for example. And they moved house, but they bought one house before selling the one that they were living in. So for a while they were paying for two mortgages, which cost them an awful lot of money and made a lot of debts. And to compound this, Mr. Smith, over about 12 months before I saw Mrs. Smith for this court report, encountered huge debts with his business. It all went off the rails. So they had really bad money problems. And Mrs. Smith actually showed poor judgment in committing this offence and she was genuinely sorry, but she allowed herself to be persuaded by Mr. Smith to commit this offence, and it was a bit extreme, really. And sometimes, often in life, you're better just putting your hand up and saying, look, I'm sorry, and we haven't got an insurance. And it would have been less her offence than she's really seriously being faced with now. One cannot but feel really sorry for Mrs. Smith and her children, that the husband has obviously been accused of committing a very, very serious offence. And she did say that they did separate for a while, about a year ago, when they had all these financial problems. But so what on earth do you propose to the court when faced with this situation? So on the face of it, so many people go, oh, sent to jail, but what would happen? Children taken into care. So in a way, what I proposed here was probation to help Mrs. Smith get her life back in order, to encourage her to be more assertive with people and train her in that, and to give her debt counselling and money management classes and budgeting, professional debt counselling to be dealing with that, and to make her subject to some community service so she can pay back society for the offence that she's done. But also the probation would help give her a bit of moral support during this very difficult period that she's going to be navigating very soon, not only dealing financial problems, but dealing with the court case that her husband's being faced with, and he may well be going away to jail for many years. So it's quite a big readjustment that she's being faced with. So there we go. I hope you find this interesting. It's a real life story. Obviously, I've changed some of the details, and it gives you an example actually of some of the offences. Men commit many more offences than women. It's rarer for women to appear in court, and when they do, often there's a man in the background, as in this case. She allowed herself to be influenced by Mr. Smith, who appears to have been quite extreme, really, quite reckless. And you kind of wonder, was there some sort of coercion in this? Did he coerce her to commit this offence? And given that they separated, I wonder, has there been some domestic violence going on? So there's quite a bit more work and investigating to do with Mrs. Smith, I think. But to help her, the whole thing is to give some sort of positive direction. She may need help to get another job, and she needs encouragement, to lead a happy and fulfilling life, really, despite all these circumstances. So there we are. I hope you found it interesting, and have a lovely day. Cheers now. Bye-bye.